Hey everyone, and this is Fabio and welcome back. Today it's kind of a special day. It technically was yesterday, but it still counts. Doesn't matter. Because a certain game of a certain series just turned 20 officially. And I'm very excited to celebrate the birthday of this game that it's the first one of my favorite series of all time. And again, watching my videos, you may guess what I'm talking about naturally. Breath of Fire 1. This game officially turned 20 yesterday. It was released in North America for the Super Nintendo August 10, 1994. Um, in Japan, it was released a year before, like in 1993, and this game was not even released in Europe, so doesn't matter. So Breath of Fire 1, Ryu no Senshi, the Dragon Warrior, is 20 years old. It's kind of crazy to think about. Also, this game has a complicated uh, distribute history. Like, it was published by different gaming company, not by Capcom. Like, for the Super Nintendo, it was published by SquareSoft, and for the Game Boy Advance, which is the copy that I have with me, I don't own this on the Super Nintendo. And for the Game Boy Advance was released by Capcom in North America and by Ubisoft here in Europe. So yeah, looking at my cartridge. Breath of Fire 1 is 20 years old. It's unbelievable. This is not the first game that I play of the series because it was not released in Europe, so obviously I didn't know about it at the time. I started to hear of the series from the second game because it was um, more famous. It's a better game. It's a fantastic game. But the first one, it's great. The first game that I played of the series was the third one on the PlayStation 1 because that's when the series started to get released in Europe as well. So after I played the third one, I played the fourth one, and then I wanted the previous two ones, naturally. And I started to play Breath of Fire 1 a couple of years ago, and I loved it. From the first and second, and I finished almost all the Breath of Fire games, and I finished this game. I have to be honest, I haven't finished as like unlocking the best ending because I'm sure there is another ending after the one that I got after beating the final boss. But in a way, it's kind of a simple game since it was released in the early 90s, and but it was really interesting. I mean, first of all, it was the first time that Capcom tried to enter into the JRPG market, a kind of an unexpected move for them, since they were famous for other kind of games, for arcade games and side-scroll games like Mega Man, of course, and others. All the Disney, the port of the Disney franchises, like the I remember Chip and Dale, DuckTales, of course, Darkwing Duck, awesome games, but never before Capcom tried an RPG. And this was the moment then they entered this market during the Super Nintendo age. And those days are easily the golden age of the series, then when it was still sort of um, hidden from the masses of the player. I mean, gamers, the RPG weren't the big thing that they will become during the PlayStation 1 days. And during the Super Nintendo, there are so many great games, so many fantastic series we have naturally. Some of the best games of all time are from these days, like Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy VI, just to mention the most famous two, but the Lufia games, the Secret of Mana, Secret of Evermore, and I can go on. These are more action RPGs, but still in the zone. Final Fantasy IV, naturally, and others. And then we got Breath of Fire 1. And, of course, naturally, we got 2 later. And I think these games are not overlooked or underestimated, but people usually tends to forget about this and say, well, the best RPG for the Super Nintendo are the Final Fantasy, or and yes, in a way it's true, but we got this fantastic game. What is Breath of Fire about? I'm not going too much into the story because it's actually I can because it's quite a simple story in a way. It's just you control Ryu, one of the main figure of the Dragon Clan, and who starts to travel the world looking for his sister Sarah, that who at the beginning of the game was kidnapped by the evil Dark Dragon Empire. So you progressively looking around the world, you find other partners like Nina and others naturally, and progressively discover what is really going on, why the Black Dragons are acting so aggressively towards the world, and discover the truth about um, the evil in the world. I mean, it's kind of a simple story, but for a game of that those days, it's like a first game. It's clearly the first game of a series. So some things were like the story, especially, was kind of simple, even though it's not a short game by any means. It's kind of a, it's quite a big. I found, at least playing it, I found it was a kind of a big game. But the story was not as deep, just as Breath of Fire 2. Breath of Fire 2 is a great story, but already it for a first chapter, I think it's a great game and a nice story. You really, really um, get attached and want to um, find Sarah. And there in this game there is a cliffhanger towards the end that I didn't expect and made me really sad in a way regarding Sarah. But of course, I'm not going to tell you because you have to play this game if you haven't. It's very good. And um, there also are interesting moments. Probably some of the characters like deserve more development, but for more character development, we have the second game. So this game, it's important, of course, because it um, gave it gave us many of the staples of the Breath of Fire series. Naturally, we have the dragon transformation. It introduced like the great dragons that you unlock towards the end of the game. It introduces the two main characters of the series, Ryu and Nina, that you are controlling towards all the games, different incarnations. But and it's such a great game. It's also introduced some places that you also revisit in the second game. I remember, for example, I don't remember the place, but the sort of island where people communicate only through music. I mean, that was so frustrating trying to, when you discover this place, like, oh, a new island, interesting, maybe I can find new equipment and stuff, but you cannot do anything because people don't understand you. You have to find this magic flute. So, also introduced, for example, the Great Bird and other. It really the games that introduced many of the staples of the Breath of Fire series, and also it's important for the story because the next two games, 2 and 3, are connected to Breath of Fire 1, and so the much discussed Breath of Fire 6, it's nothing more than a spin-off of this game. It's a side story since it takes place during the time of Breath of Fire 1, during the fight between the world and the Dark Dragon clan. So that is a thing, as I said before many times, now that I'm thinking about Breath of Fire 6, it's something that I like about that. I mean, there are many problems with the development of this game, I think, in terms of ideas, and the game being only multiplayer, developed for iOS and stuff like that. But apart from that, the idea of being like a way to explore the world of Breath of Fire, it's great. And to learn more about Breath of Fire 1, because it's a game that can offer so much more in terms of story and characters and stuff like that. So it is great to celebrate the 20th anniversary of an amazing game that started one of my personal favorite series of all time. It really deserves like a tribute video from myself, since I'm a big fan of the entire series. And I love Breath of Fire 1. It's not my favorite, but simply because it's the first game. It's not as deep as others, but it's a great first game. I really like it. In the future, I would love to play on the Super Nintendo. At the moment, I don't have it with me here, so I don't want to spend the money and to order this game. and not playing it. That would be too annoying for me. So I played and finished the Game Boy Advance one. Maybe one day I will try to have the best ending. Also because, like most of the time, I try not to use a guide to play this game, and it's not a, at least personally, I didn't find it that easy because most of the time, I it took me a while to understand where I was supposed to go, what I was supposed to do. So sometimes I was a bit lost. That could be maybe my only complaint about this game. Because the thing with the development of the characters and stuff like that, it's a first game. If you play the sequel after that, there's all the problem with the characters and stuff. It's not an issue anymore. But sometimes a bit cryptic, but it was normal for those games. I mean, games in the NES, Super Nintendo age usually were cryptic. They didn't tell you you have to do this and you have to go there. They give you some hints here and there, and then you have to figure it out by yourself. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just maybe now I'm a bit spoiled by newer games that they tell you more, and I don't mind that either. So I like both stuff. And it's Breath of Fire 1, it's not the best of the series. It's a great game, it's a fantastic first chapter of an even better series. And I really, really wanted to do this short and simple video just to celebrate its anniversary and its fantastic legacy. So this is all for now, folks. Happy 20th birthday to Breath of Fire 1, one of the one of my favorite series of all time. Its grandfather, you can call it like that. Celebrate this great game and its amazing legacy. Thanks for watching, like always, guys. Take care.